Jewish characters. And it didn't fly. But we had, in fact, actually the Anti-Defamation League in Miami was one of our great defenders, which was always great. We had a rabbi we could call.
You going to kick that over?
I hope not.
I got kids. I freak out. The Anti-Defamation League called your show?
No, they were great defenders of ours because they would get the call, we had a lady, we used to put people up, pretend like we put them on hold. Ma'am, this is Bob Green. Yes, and I heard this man talking. Hold on, if you wouldn't, we're going into a commercial break, Phil, is that right? Yes, we are. All right, hold on, ma'am, and we'll be right with you as we go into the commercial break. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right, we're in a commercial now, Phil. Is the lady on hold? Yes, she is. I got some old Jew on the line here, and I don't know what we're going to do. And, all right, let's go back. We're back on. Okay. All right, ma'am, this is Bob Green. I heard everything you just said, the old Jew. And now I was encouraged in this behavior by my Jewish producer, I'd like to say at this time. Otherwise, I never would have gone near any of that material. And so, there's Bobby Dooley, and I think we mentioned you were on Bobby's podcast, Jay.
Yes.
Did she mention her trip to Dachau with her husband?
Yeah, somebody slapped
lunch?
a piece of chicken out of her hand and it hit the floor of the bus. All right. You know what? There's no denying this anymore. We have to just fill it up with Bobby Dooley because it's the elephant in the room. There have been... For my dear listeners, the Mohrers, they like to call themselves.
The Mohrers.
There have been 3 times in my life, and I've told you this on the telephone, Phil Hendrie is my guest. There have been 3 times in my life in show business where I thought to myself, I must be really hot shit the way this is going right now. Like identifying the moment and all the things that led up to that moment. Number 1, Jiminy Glick, Martin Short on Comedy Central. I was on the Jiminy Glick show. There was no pre-interview. I showed up. Bernie Brillstein and Mark Gerbitz told me where to sit. Martin Short walked out in his costume, and they started rolling. There was no script. We ad-libbed the entire thing. It was me, Martin Short, and Michael McKeon ad-libbing for like 2 hours. And I thought to myself, they trust me to hang here. Yeah. Wow, I must be better than I always want to be this, but now they've proved it to me.
That's a great crew, too, you're hanging with there,
ridiculous.
Man. Yeah.
Number 2, on the movie Burt Wonderstone, on ad-libbing with Steve Carell, Jim Carrey, Steve Buscemi, by the way, the silent killer. Nobody knows how funny this guy is. Steve Buscemi, Steve Carell, Jim Carrey, they have to start takes over because I'm making Steve Carell laugh. And I thought, this is another one.
Doing it, man.
That's 2. The 3rd time in my entire life. I've been doing stand-up comedy since I was 16 years old. I'm 42 years old. I don't know the math. It's a long time.
Yeah.
When I was on the Bobby Dooley podcast and I was ad-libbing with Phil Hendrie as Bobby Dooley, I could not believe how... You don't understand. It wasn't that I killed it. You were so bananas great, and nothing slowed you down. I could have self-immolated and lit myself on fire. You were not a broken character. Right. And that was the 3rd time. And that's on my hand to God. Those are the 3 times. Being on the Bobby Dooley podcast, I thought to myself, this is showbiz at its absolute finest. That was Ali Frazier. You and I ad-libbing.
Yeah, and when you're in the character, it's easy to do,
Joel McHale I listened to all of them when I went, as soon as I got home, I dialed up the Bobby Dooley podcast. Joel McHale, so damn funny.
Yeah.
And brilliant. And talking about syphilis was the AIDS of its time, and like Al Capone died, and Bobby Dooley's super confused how Al Capone got syphilis in prison.
Yeah.
Bobby Dooley is loosely based on anyone we know.
She's based on my mother.
Oh, okay. I don't know if the magician gives away his secrets on podcasts.
Oh no, I mean any character you create, you base it on a real person. You give it a biography. I read where actors. I wrote a whole biography of my character before I did them. Did you really? I don't do that. It's just that it's in my head already. As I do the character, the biography is created. And Bobby.
Yes. And so she talks like this, folks. And I was on with Jay Mohr. Do you hear? Have you, Steve?
Yeah. Jay Mohr is on the sports and everything.
Oh, he's on the sports. That's right. He's on the sports. Which one?
It's really fun and everything. And Jim Rome.
I don't know Jim Rome. Oh, Jim Rome is the little man, isn't he?
I replaced him.
Did you replace him?
Yeah, he went to CBS Sports.
So that's my mom.
I gotta say, when the first time you did the
and the straight look, and my mother would look at us and just, was she listening? Fuck no, man. She's not listening to a word we're saying. She's looking at our shoes, our hair. So where are you going, honey? Well, Mom, there's a really great concert.
The first time you dropped that loud one on, there's 2 levels, or 3 rather. Mm-hmm. How many are there? Do you know?
Well, there's sort of there's a
that one. When the tongue comes out.
The tongue goes out.
That made me lose my shit. Where actually, I had to cover my mouth. Because here's the thing: when you're doing the podcast, you have 2 sound guys, and there's like a producer fellow over here. Right. Really nice crew, by the way.
Nice guys,
you know, you've done well. I don't know why. There's like a crazy ass staff, like you're fucking David Geffen with a podcast. I had to take the elevator to 11. They had to take me an elevator down to 6. They had to validate my parking on 5. They're like, Phil, we'll see you now. But he's in this room with these. I'm not lying. That's how it happened.
I didn't know it was that complicated.
It was amazingly complicated.
They do a lot of podcasts out of this.
But they're all very pleasant.
Yeah, nice guys.
And here's the thing. I came home, and my wife is also a huge fan of yours.
Oh, great.
And I said, it's as close to I can. It's like being on acid and holding your shit together in front of your parents for like that 1 minute as they get their keys and go out the door, where you're vibrating.
Yes.
And you're staring at like a tomato in a dish on the table, and you're like, don't fucking say, because you want to go, oh my God, look at that tomato, like everything, the whole. And I know you know what I'm talking about. I didn't know if I was allowed to laugh. I thought if I laughed, I ruined the podcast.
Yeah.
Because your crew is a nerd, sort of, to this character. They've been around you for a while.
Yeah.
And you're going, and I am going.
That's a good question.
I am weeping, clenching my asshole, vibrating like to the listeners that have done acid. You know exactly what I mean. If you haven't done acid, I can't help you. It's like vibrating, holding my shit together, because I really thought if I went like, well, we have to start over because Bobby Dooley's a real person. We didn't let anyone in on the joke.
Why do you think that?
But Bobby would not. She'd sort of play that as she didn't notice it, or you're coughing, or because the great thing about the character, when we thought about doing a podcast of the character, said, well, which is a good character? I said, Bobby is perfect, because no matter how big the person is that she's interviewing, and she's impressed with celebrity, she's more important. So you could have the Queen of England in there, and she'd still.
So it's England? It's England. Okay,
England.
Steve, it's England. It's not what you said.
It's United something.
That's the United States.
Also a kingdom.
Oh, the kingdom.
So
Kingdom
so she doesn't. And so Bobby's great that way. So you could be laughing, and she'd be,
do you need a cup of water? Or, oh, I see you're laughing. Well, what's fun? You know.
And I thought about that. So the first person we did was Patty Arquette, who's a dramatic actress, but she's a fan of Bobby's. And in fact, Patty and Bobby got into it on Twitter, which is what led us to believe she might be a good guest on the show. And Patty was laughing, but I realized at that moment, Bobby blows right through that. She doesn't see it because she is so sociopathically self-absorbed.
Patty Arquette in real life. Nice.
Hell of a nice lady.
Sexy girl.
Beautiful.
Is she like Alabama Whirly, or is it Alabama Whirly turned 44?
You mean from True Romance?
No. Roots.
From Roots. No, dude, I don't. I think she's absolutely smashingly gorgeous. She's really beautiful, man. And she's she's really bright, great sense of humor, extremely, humble. And,
Bobby must have been obsessed with Nick Cage.
Well, yeah, I want to know.
And so Bobby asked her,
so you were married to 2 men who were disturbed, correct? Weren't they mentally disturbed?
No. How, she found that very funny. She was married to Thomas Jane and Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, one of them played Mickey Mantle.
Yeah, so, that whole thing. And then.
So your grandfather was Clifford Weaver. Is that, I don't get that.
It turns out that her grandfather was Charlie Weaver, the character on Hollywood Squares. I don't know if you ever saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Charlie Weaver, Cliff Arquette. That's her grandfather. And then Louis Arquette. The whole family. She's a scion of this, it's almost like the Barrymores, and
the Winans.
Yeah.
Or the Wayans. Or the Barrymores. I could have just left it at Barrymore's.
The Wayans.
I could have just given you the layup at Barrymore's. I'm like, no, I can do one better. They're like the Osmonds.
The Osmonds.
Like the Stallones. Sly and Frank.
The Stallones.
And Maria. She's a singing waitress at Michelli's. So your idea to do this podcast, it's ballsy to have a podcast as yourself and then a podcast as Bobby Dooley.
As a character. Yeah.
And now
that was Darren McAfee's idea, the producer over at Sideshow. He said, let's do a character podcast, man. I said, and then I settled on Bobby because we do like 20 or 30 characters, on the show. But she would be the best. I felt she was the best. I think it's working pretty good.
Are you insane? Do you think you're insane?
I'm depressed.
Yes?
I take medicine for that. Yeah, oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's like runs in my family. My father was bipolar. Insane? No. If you worry that you're insane, you're not insane.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Yeah. If you think you got it together.
I only ask because the amount of voices in your head.
They're not in my head, though. I mean, people will ask me that. Do you ever break into character when you're like making love to a woman? How does that happen? Sure. You bet. Yeah. I'm banging a chick from behind and I'd start going into Bud Dickman. Hey. I think that just would that would be mental,
How many characters do you have, do you think?
Probably about 30,
Like, I do impressions, but like I have something to study.
Impressions are way tougher to do.
Well, no, because I didn't make them up. I'm just copying. I'm just a mimic. I'm a parrot. I'm an ape. Well, I see Norm Macdonald and I go, Norm Macdonald there, And I just see somebody and I just do it. I can either do Al Pacino, sure. I can either do it right away or I can't.
Yeah.
But I don't know about how many. If I had to write down, when I got on Saturday Night Live, they said write down any characters you're bringing to the table. That way, if they go on the air, you can get the money when we sell mugs of. And I was like, there's no goddamn. They're not going to sell Christopher Walken mugs. They're impression mugs.
That's my impression of him. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I realized I have no original characters.
Well, you do. I mean, you've been an actor in film, so you've created a character. Or were you just playing yourself?
A lot, yeah.
I mean,
but again, that's a character. I was being a dick on purpose. I don't want people to think I actually tried to pull that on Phil Hendrie. But again, that's a character somebody wrote. They go, here comes cousin Mike. He's a bit of a noodlehead. He's not too bright. Right. He's from the neighborhood. So you just go, hey, how you guys doing? Yeah. You didn't talk to me for 8 years because you were gay?
That's fantastic.
I mean, that's cousin Mike. But I'm just imitating a guy that I grew up with. I mean, literally, I was doing James Barone from Verona, New Jersey.
I love that.
I was doing an exact...
You didn't talk to me for 8 years because you thought I was gay?
You didn't talk to me for 8 years because you were gay?
I don't know. It's like I got an audition on Saturday for a pilot, and people say, "Well, you do characters, Phil. It's easy. It's hard, man, to go in and actually stand in front of a bunch of people and audition and create a character and remember lines and all this. Good
It is
shit,
very hard.
Yeah. So I like
if you got the job. To do the job would be easy.
Yeah,
if they gave you whatever you're auditioning for Saturday, you'll agree with me. If they gave you that job and you just had it in perpetuity,
great, man.
Nothing to it.
Yeah.
It's the actual standing in a weird, barren room with 3 folding chairs, and they go
with a camera.
Action, go, Phil, do it now.
And they're giving you the look, and of course, sometimes they're looking at you like searching for the talent. I know there's some there, and they're squinting. And you leave, and it's just who do I think I'm kidding? But I would like to be able to think that these characters are really distinct. But I get a lot of people who say to me, "Your voices all sound the same." I said, "Okay, if you're listening for that, I'm sure that they do, But you gotta almost sort of not be so critical." This was a lady who said, "My husband really likes you, but I don't because the voices all sound the same." All right, I mean, then I guess you don't like the show. It's okay. But she felt the need to kind of reach out and make sure that my day was going even worse than it was.
She was really
stick that extra needle in. Yeah.
She was the walking internet.
There you go.
Walking internet. Just tell you, right when you feel good about yourself, go online. They'll be like, Jay Mohr got fucking fat.
Dude, do you read all that shit about yourself? I stay away from it.
Honestly,
I try to stay away from it.
Years it's been.
Yeah.
I've been really good about staying away, not getting trolled. I used to get hooked real bad on Twitter.
God.
I used to get in Twitter battles. I was in a fight with a guy in a New York Jets message board, jetsinsider.com, and me and this guy went at it for like a year.
Holy shit.
And then his avatar picture was a picture of Jimmy Page.
Uh-huh.
Is that what it's called? Avatar?
Avatar,
His avatar was a picture of Jimmy Page.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, well, in a meeting of and I'm a year, Phil. He changed his avatar picture to his prom photo. It was a fucking child.
A little guy.
It was like a 16-year-old. So that means when I was arguing with him was before his prom.
Before his prom.
You come in here to argue on the internet, you cunt. Who are you? You're a child.
You're a child trying to work with men.
You go to your prom and you talk about the New York Jets. That's not right. Oh, Phil, when did my voice get so deep?
Is that him in Glenn Ross?
It's him. The first one was.
Shiva.
Yeah. What do you have? Because he used to talk real high.
He did.
He used to sound like Tyne Daly from Cagney and Lacey. Yes, sir. No, Sarge. How you doing, Hov? We're Vietnam veterans. Killing don't mean nothing to us. He's in the bank. He answers the phone. NEW. We play all the hits. What's under the desk? A squirrel? And then right around Heat, he just starts going, "Oh, something's on my back. It doesn't feel right. I'm so tired."
He did. He's just. You know what? They got these 8-ball wounds behind their eyes, too.
Oh,
Suddenly it was-
8-ball wound. Every once in a while, when he gets deep in